wanted to see what would grow and what wouldn't grow. We're at about 2,900 feet. It was actually a greater revelation.
Somehow I think our Father has a purpose in all of this. One of his purposes is to keep us in the Word.
But what we're trying to show people is that they can actually do this. And I know they can because we're doing it. When the little horn gets its mandate to rule the world, to implement a one world religion, it will take up its seat in Jerusalem as sitting as God, as a representative of God, and he will declare that there's only one religion, and anything that's going on in Jerusalem, which I believe the prophecies are indicating that there's going to be a active sacrificial system going on because the Jews will have their temple, that he will put a stop to it. This is what the prophecies say as we read them. And so that's what we're looking for. So this little horn power does this. What other deception might they try? Fire from heaven, perhaps. You guys remember that the fire from heaven represented what?
The acceptance of Yahweh.
The acceptance that God had accepted what they were doing, right? Okay. So we saw that there was a pillar of fire from heaven at the desert tabernacle, right? To represent that God's presence was with his people. Fire from heaven with Elijah's altar at Mount Carmel demonstrated that the God of heaven approved what Elijah was doing. Elijah had another thing that happened when he brought down fire, or when God brought down fire and destroyed the 50. They sent another 50. The next 50 said, hey, wait a minute, don't light us up. We surrender. I just want to tell you something. So they got the message. So it demonstrates who the prophet is, who God is, who's in charge, all of this stuff. Fire from heaven came down David's altar. You guys remember that? When David was going to build an altar, he saw the fire come down, consume the sacrifice, and then he went out to purchase this. I need to own this property. And he went out, and that's Ornan's threshing floor, and we talked about that. That was what the prophecy of Malachi was talking about, that the Messiah would suddenly come to his temple and purge it. That's what that was talking about. Fire from heaven at the dedication of Solomon's temple. You remember that? When Solomon prayed, got up on that altar, the 5 foot, what was it? 5 by, my dimensions. 5 cubits by 3 cubits, I think. When he got up there and prayed as the son of David, representing himself, the fire came down on the altar and consumed the sacrifice. Demonstrating that God had accepted what they had done. Very interesting. Nowhere is it recorded that fire came down with the second temple. Now I want to ask you a question. The temple that Zerubbabel built? Why not? Why not? If God came and showed David where to build that temple, and fire came down, showed him, Solomon's temple, fire came down, what was the purpose of the fire coming down? It was acceptance, but it was not only that, it was to demonstrate to the people that God was in control. Now, my personal opinion is that either God was negligent or something else happened when no fire, it's recorded, came down when that second temple was built. There's something going, there's no record of that. I have to ask why. Was it because fire from heaven had become so common that it was deemed irrelevant to record? Now, would you be impressed if fire came down?
Yeah.
Sure. Far more likely, the people had disobeyed. Now, think about this. The people had disobeyed when they did not build the temple that God instructed through Ezekiel, but instead built Zerubbabel's temple. God didn't send his fire because this was not the temple that he revealed to his servant Ezekiel. Why does it seem that they go into darkness? They slowly go into darkness until Yeshua shows up, until John shows up. It's like strange history through those years. Strange history through those years. I have to question, it's very interesting that while Daniel's prophesying of his people going back and rebuilding a temple in Jerusalem and the Messiah coming, that at the very same time Ezekiel's having dreams about a temple that is to be rebuilt. Could it be that God gave one prophet one message and gave another prophet the other message? Is that how God works? Absolutely, that's how God works. He revealed to Ezekiel the temple, but they never built that temple because they thought it would be too difficult. And even the people, it's recorded in Scripture, that saw Solomon's temple and saw Zerubbabel's temples, they wept because it had nothing on Solomon's temple. Solomon's temple was built for the Messiah to come too. They lost sight of that fact. The temple was to be there for the Messiah. Had they believed and done what was impossible with men but possible with God and built that temple, I believe that it would have been different. It would have been different. Will fire come down with the third temple? That's a great question. Right. Revelation 13:13-14 says he performs great signs so that even makes fire come down from heaven on the sight of men, and he deceives those that dwell on the earth. Oh my goodness gracious. So we're told what could happen. So if we see fire come down from heaven, is that proof of anything? It may be proof that God has given Satan some power back that he has. He's restored some of that power because he's going to have a last go. By those signs which he is granted to do, who grants Satan to have those powers? Has to be. Who else could it be? There's no higher authority. God grants Satan to do this. Why? Why would God do that? It says here that he was granted to do this. So God grants Satan the power to do this. He will send them strong delusion that they might believe a lie because they love not righteousness. So he's going to open the door. And why would God do this? I wish that you were cold or hot, but because you are lukewarm, I will spew you out. You see, God has to get, and this is what people don't understand, before the end, God is going to have people either on this side of the line or on this side of the line. And this is why he's going to send strong delusion, because it looks like people are walking along the fence right now. And he wants to get them off the fence. So he's going to allow certain things to happen on this world that's going to get them either on this side or on this side. And so he's going to allow Satan some of these powers that he had originally. He's going to give them back, and then people are going to make their decisions. We're going to cover some of this stuff a little bit later as well.
Y es lo mismo que significa el hombre y Dios y el sábado en el medio. El sábado es ese pacto matrimonial del hombre con Dios.
All I'm doing here is I'm just pointing you to look at these connections. And when I leave and I'm halfway across the ocean, you're going to be able to start studying this out yourself. We can't miss these parallels. So we have to study for ourselves. First study group, and they just told us what they were interested in, and that's what we did. So And you got a handful of Daniel and Revelation again, but that is exactly what they were after. They want to know what all that stuff meant for us today.